Hello, this is Sam Simon, also known as Dementia Man. And this is my blog for the week of that includes July 4th. It begins on Sunday, I think is the 20, let's see, this is 28th, and goes through to the 4th. And people may not know it. My wife, Susan, and I live in McLean, Virginia, which is a suburb of Washington, D.C. So, yes, there are going to be gigantic celebrations and fireworks in the sky all over the metropolitan Washington, D.C. area. And as a man with Alzheimer's, also known as dementia, which I hate the word. I'm trying to think about how to reflect on this. The first thing you should know, the first thing we're doing is getting the heck out of town. Um, we, Susan and I and our family, do own a second home, though it is on the market. Because we're moving into senior living next year and we're downsizing. But we still have this home, and it is a really good place to go to. Why? Because it's in the northern neck of Virginia. This is a place near where America began. We live around the corner from where George Washington was born. I say around the corner. It's probably a 20-minute drive, but that's close, isn't it? We drive by his boyhood home, which is near Fredericksburg, Virginia, on our way down. And so there's this great tie to the beginnings of America. Sometimes we'd go for our walks and it's still very rural. And we wonder what may have been happening back then. It was probably all forest. Um, Now there's a lot of farmland around us, but it was probably just a bunch of trees right near where we're on the water. So the Potomac River comes off of the Chesapeake Bay. So we're about 17 miles from that point. So if you were coming up by boat, the Chesapeake Bay towards Maryland, you would come by where the Potomac River intersects or flows into the Chesapeake Bay. And you turn up the Potomac River and you'd take your boat about 17 miles and you would turn up the Yokomaco River. And then, um, I don't know, probably about 4 or 5 miles up, it sort of splits and there's something called Lodge Creek, but it's fully navigable. We had boats for many, many years and a pretty decent sized boat for a while. And as we went up Lodge Creek, um, that's where our second home is. It's pretty far up the creek. We go by a marina where we kept our boats, and we loved it. You can go crabbing. It's beautiful. There are pictures um, that are um, on my, well, I don't know. Well, I'm not going to put the pictures up because that's not the point of this. But that's where we're going. No, it is. The other point is it is near the history where America began down there. Um, and so we'll be down there. We do have access, even though it's very rural, to um, television, and we'll be watching the July 4th celebrations from, the Washington, but they'll also be down there. Uh, it'll be quieter, and it'll be good for a guy like me. You know, I was trying to think of what to comment about July 4th and the country's 250th anniversary. And so, what else do you do when you're not sure? I asked my friend Copilot, how do I connect my journey with Alzheimer's with the 250th anniversary of this country? I loved its answer, so I'm going to be cheating from it, and that is July 4th. Our Independence Day is about independence, and so it is a time to think about how I am losing my own independence. Um, what should it look like for every American, including those of us living with cognitive change? It raises all sorts of issues. First of all, I will come back and say, most importantly, life with this disease is worth living. Yes, I'll be changing. Yes, I am changing. Yes, I am, um, the line in the play is, I wonder what the Sam of me then, when I change, when I become someone else. What the Sam of me then will know about the Sam of me now. I am becoming someone else, not something else, but someone else. So I'm losing both independence. Um, how do we accept support? Um, um, how do we keep memory as well? July 4th and the 250th anniversary is about the memory of our country. Um, so navigating life with memory is more fragile. Um, what do we want to remember? What do we remember? I like to think back to the various July 4ths in my life. I grew up in El Paso, Texas. So it was an interesting place. We would go to the plaza. We lived in what was called Kern Place. Um, it was about 3, 4 miles from downtown El Paso. El Paso at that time had the plaza. This was the main sort of park. It's where the buses came to from all parts of the city, and you went and around the city. I'm talking, I could remember from probably the early 50s. I was born in 45. And they would have celebrations down there. There'd be fireworks down there. Um, and I also think about my relatives and my own history. Um, and that's a good part of um, my legacy and storytelling and being taken care of now. But I wonder about, and I like to think about relatives and my family. And there are two sides of my family, as are, well, some people have multiple marriages and complicated. My life is very traditional and very simple. I was married at the age of 21. Susan was 20. We both have been married. Well, we've been married um, 59 years, and as of today, it'd be 59 years, 10 months, and 3 days. Well, and as of the time I may recording, it's 3 days. By the time you might read it, it'll be about 5 days. Um, s- but so we learn so much more about our family histories. My grandfather, Marcus Simon, it's also my son's name. It's also my father's name. So Marcus. Talk about traditions in the Judaism. You name your children after people who have passed. My father had passed by the time my son was born. His name was Marcus. His grandfather was named Marcus and came to the United States from Germany. We don't know the exact year, but he came into uh, Ellis Island and he uh, married a Clara Blonder. No, I'm sorry, that's my grandfather. I'm trying to remember who my great grandfather married. Um, and I'll have to come back to that. But they had 12 children, and one of them was named Sidney, Sidney Simon, and that was my grandfather who came to El Paso. His wife was Clara Blonder, and talk about legacy, Clara Blonder, the Blonder family is the side of my family that has uh, the Alzheimer's gene and Alzheimer's in the family. So part of my legacy and inheritance is from the Blonders, my APOE4 gene. Um, and Sidney Simons, my grandfather, he had three children. My father, who he named Marcus after his father, and then there's Joseph, and then there's Doris uh, Simon. And the and my dad, Marcus, says there were five of us. Um, my oldest sister, Marion Simon Garmel. Marion was my go-to sibling. She was the one I was closest to. Um, she was quite a prominent person in her own right. She born in El Paso. Um, she was a state tennis champion. She went to the University of Texas for to get her bachelor's degree in journalism. Dan Rather was a classmate of hers, by the way. She was very progressive politically. Worked with the National Students Association, which at one time was considered a communist front, which it turned out had been a CIA front group, or had been doing the work with CIA. She became the first woman reporter for Dow Jones or the Wall Street Journal Company. She was the first full-time woman reporter. How about them? Then my sister Evelyn, who is still alive, 86, married at 18 to a Eugene Fox, who is a retired major general. He is 92, and by the way, was an Army career, obviously as a major general, and he was responsible for the Army air defense and uh, the anti-missile missiles created, uh, the first ones ever created in the first shot of a shooting down an incoming missile. And he has, they have um, four children, and three of them are boys, and of the three, two went to West Point. Um, and part of that was perhaps my inspiration to go into Army JAG. It certainly was because my mother very much wanted me to have a career in the military. And then there was my sister Harriet. Harriet had her own mental health issues. She was diagnosed with a low IQ, but she actually we had her checked at a hospital late in life, and They couldn't believe that she graduated college, and she did. Um, and then I have a younger sister, Sue, who's alive and well. She's lives nearby us, and we're bonded as a family living together. Her children, one of her children, her grandchildren, and her daughter, who has those, live in this area too. Um, so that's sort of my side of the family. Susan, you came from Houston. She had two brothers and a sister. Do I remember? I'm not forgetting anybody. Her oldest brother is still alive. Um, both her brothers were, well, her, we're, we're married because her oldest brother, Buddy Kalmans, was in the army. They went to, oh, what is, a Texas Military Academy. I'm blanking on it, but he was in the army, and he was stationed at Fort Bliss in El Paso, which is where I lived. There's Fort Bliss, and there was an Biggs Air Force, Army Air Force Base there, and they had a cousin, the Gibbons, in El Paso. So when Susan was ready for college, she wanted to go away, and they had to be in state. So the farthest college from Houston was Texas Western in El Paso. That's where we went to school together, and it enabled her to go to El Paso. Um, Melvin, her other brother, is he just lost his wife, um, and he still lives in Houston. And her oldest sibling, her sister Bernice, married, named Edelstein, got married and lived in Brownsville, Texas. So that's our family story. And yes, it's time of memory. And, America for all our families. And both Susan and my family come from uh, Europe. The blonder side of my family, and I haven't talked about my mother's side yet. But on my father's side, they came from Poland. Um, and through Germany. I think I've talked about my mother's side, Frida Alfman, Alfman. Her family, her father, um, we called him Harry. That cannot have been his real name. Hoffman was a stowaway, came into Montgomery, Alabama, eventually became a very successful businessman. They call he he too got in trouble. He was a troublemaker. They called him a tinsmith, but in Florida, uh, he went from Montgomery to Pensacola, Florida. He hung out with the family that founded the uh, Macy's, and they were well off back then. And he did very well. His oldest daughter, Lena Alfman. I'm finding out so much even now because when you go through a terminal disease and towards my own end of life, I try to preserve archives and my memories. And we're finding out about Lena Alfman, the 20th woman to ever be a lawyer in Florida. She was in the World Typing Association in New York. Did you know there was a World Typing Association in New York? And to get in, you had to qualify as an elite typist and be one of the fastest typists in the country, if not the world. And she had been a court reporter, but she took the bar in Florida and passed, in Texas and passed, in Louisiana and passed. And one other thing, we're just finding this out. Lena Alfman was the first assistant U.S. attorney ever in the state of Florida. And we're researching to see if she was among the first woman assistant U.S. attorney in the United States. I don't know if she was the very first. So I have a family. We both have legacy and who who lived in America. Of the 250 years, my dad would and parent. I think both our parents would have been in their uh, uh, let's see, '07. So my dad was born in '07 to 2007. He'd been 100. He would have been 120. It's '07, 2007, and this is 26. So 119 or so by now. Almost half the American history, not quite. Very different growing up. And now we have our own children. And, I think July 4th, particularly marking this history, our two children were with us on Capitol Hill on July 4th, 1978, was it? On the 100th? 1976, sorry, on the 100th anniversary. So 1776 to 1976. Um, 200, sorry, 50 years ago. Yeah, or 55 years ago. On the 200th anniversary. I'm sorry. Sorry about that. But they were with us on Capitol Hill. They were little kids, um, 5 and 6 years old, watching from the steps of the Capitol. Um, so we have this great history, and we're proud to be not only proud, but fortunate to be Americans and grow up in a country where there has been freedom. And um, it's not just political, it is emotional. And I'm avoiding making this political because we're Democrats and I have all sorts of feelings about that, but I don't think that's what I want to talk about. I didn't. Um, it means Freedom also means being understood, supported, and included. It, it isn't just a celebration. It's a moment too of renewal and reckoning. And I think in some ways that's also true for even me I'll turn 81 July 18th. So uh, I was born 18. Well, July 4th would have been 14 days. And then July 4th would have been, if it was back then, that would have been 14 days after July 4th. And so those are my thoughts for this July 4th time. I hope they're meaningful to you and help you, particularly those of you who are caregivers and those of you going through any disease at this time. We can celebrate, and particularly our freedom and being in this country and what it had to offer us and our families, and to be grateful and thoughtful. So with that, I'll let you get ready for your celebrations and your activities this July 4th, the 250th anniversary of America.